satsang. 2 weeks ago we had a talk about, the satsang was about the inner unrest or inner discontent that most people suffer from. And we covered it, and apparently it proved quite popular. The comments were very favorable, and we had quite over 1,000 views of it. So, but many letters were received where they asked, could you go deeper into that? Why most people suffer that inner discontent. So let's go into it. Also, I've had a few emails. The first two are going to help us to go a little deeper into the cause of it. But I would like you to participate and say what comes to you from your own heart. Okay, this is important. You know, when we talk about inner discontent, we are talking about what Course in Miracles actually refers to as guilt, or that sadness that is always there somehow, no matter what. There's always a feeling as if you're not good enough, as if you've done something wrong, as if you're missing something, as if you're not letting go enough, there's always something there that's eating away at you. Okay, we established 2 weeks ago that this happens because you're a human being. The being is your own perfection, it is love itself, and you are that. But we identify so much with the human in everyday life, and there's nothing wrong with that, because everything is one anyway. But the thing is that we identify so much with the human that we forget the being. That everything emerges towards being. You know, when we think about being, we're thinking about timelessness. You see, we think that, because we have a linear brain, a human brain, we think in terms of time all the time. Time is going by. But in actuality, if we look at reality or realize it in our heart, time is relative. Just like Einstein said, and all great men who realize the truth know. It is the earth rotating around the sun, creating the semblance of time, seasons, etc., etc. And we give them different names. But in truth, it's all a circle, repeating over and over again. Why? Because in truth you are now itself. That is the being. The being is now. This moment is the whole truth. It took me 27 years to realize something so simple. Because I studied philosophy, psychology, I majored in many studies, I've read every conceivable book. But then it came to me, there's nothing to know. Just to feel now is all that there is. And it teaches you everything you need to know, because now is the silence of the heart. And when we learn to listen to it, there's nothing that we cannot know. So what causes the inner sadness, the inner discontent, is because we try to figure out everything with the mind. Everything with the mind. Let me think about it. You see, I want to figure it out. I want to make sense out of it, but not forgetting that the individualized mind, I'm not talking about the universal mind, I'm talking about the individualized mind, is extremely limited. And it deals only with its own experience. And even Albert Einstein said, you cannot solve a problem with the same mind that created it. So we see here that we have to go into a higher realm of understanding and knowing and seeing, which again brings us to being, to be. Okay, so, so now what do you feel is the catalyst of this deep feeling of, of discontent? What comes to you? What is it, its expression? Why it's always there? What makes us do what we do? What is it that we do?
For me, it's a longing to go home, a longing to be one with something I know is there but think I'm separated from.
Very good. It is that separation. It is that feeling of separation. Now, I'll give you this analogy, and I've given that example many, many times, but the point is to really see it as an example of what you just said, the separation that we think we are. Picture the ocean. The ocean is one. And then a wind comes, which is a movement, and that movement creates ripples called waves. Now we've got billions of waves. But please understand that these waves, each one is unique, different, and separate from the others. Billions of them. Well, the same with us. We are all the same one life. And we're all seen to be separate, different from each other. So, but because we only see the outside, what happens through that separation is that we begin to feel that somehow people are outside of us, and therefore the way we've been brought up, conditioned by our religion, tradition, upbringing, you know, and all goes into it, moralistic training, makes us start to judge. So what happens is that every time you dislike something, every time you think something is wrong, okay, what is actually happening is that it doesn't agree with you because somehow or other, maybe in your upbringing, maybe your experiences in life, whatever you've been taught, has somehow made you feel that this is not good. I mean, if I'm brought up in a religion where it tells me that sex is a sin, immediately I begin to think it is a sin, and I feel guilty. Or if you dream this or think this, okay, all of a sudden there's that moralistic attitude where it says, oh, this is wrong. And so we begin to judge any person that we feel is following this pattern that we think is wrong, and we see it in another. So did you know that every time you judge a person, you are judging yourself? Because it's all one. So if I am judging you for what you did, somehow or other in me lies that feeling of what you did, because I am disliking it. The fact that I dislike it means there's something in me that I don't like when I think something like that. But I project it. So this is what we do. So in other words, what I'm saying is that we are judging all the time. Now, how often do we judge? Did you know there's thousands every day we make judgments about everything? And each judgment keeps us trapped because our being is innocent. You see, our innocence does not see wrong. That's a hard one to understand. You know, someone wrote me today and they said, Burt, I know you say love is all there is and God is all there is and it's perfect unconditional love. He says, but how do you explain what happened in Boston a couple of days ago? You know, you've heard of it, right? That bombing and the people that were injured and killed. And you see, and he wants an answer to something like that, and he says that God created that. Well, first of all, things happen because of the following. Pure awareness is our true nature, which is pure being. Pure awareness cannot do wrong. It is timeless, it is spaceless, it is beyond any limitation. That is your true nature, pure awareness. But from pure awareness, which doesn't belong to you or me, it just is, but everybody is working from that awareness, also comes perception. Now here is where we begin to understand. When I studied psychology, I never knew this, but it came through my own realization. And then the Course in Miracles worked into it. Perception is individual. Perception is how you see things according to your conditioning. That creates our perception of life. So every time we dislike, every time we judge something as wrong, we are actually immersing ourselves into that very same world through our perception. Because if we judge anything or make anything wrong, it is our perception that is making it so, which means it's in us. So this is what's compounding our feeling of unrest, our feeling of dis-ease, our feeling of, of discontent. Okay, so so let's go into a little bit further. The The first email that I got, which maybe it will help us to go a little deeper, because it says, it seems that I have reached the biggest turning point in my life, the point where it is either fear or love, and because I'm so used to being in fear, I'm choosing fear all the time. And this frustrates me so much, I have tears in my eyes as I write this. While I'm writing this email, I feel so helpless. I think that I will die if I let go. Okay, what this will help us here is this, that within the love that we think we are is an emotion. But true love, the love that is God itself, love which is unconditional, has no opposite. Course in Miracles makes this beautiful quote. It says, the opposite of love is fear, but that which is all-encompassing can have no opposite. Now, if we understand this, I think this covers it all right here and there. Okay? You're familiar with the Course in Miracles? Mm-hmm. Okay. So that quote is so all-encompassing itself. First of all, when we think in terms of love, we think in terms of human love, which is emotional love. Emotional love is filled with fear. Fear of commitment, fear of getting hurt, fear of rejection, fear of losing person you love, jealousy. It's filled with fear because it is still emotional, wanting to possess, to own that which you love, and afraid to give yourself totally. And this is why we're afraid to let go, because letting go would mean actually to surrender, to let go of yourself, who you think you are. You see, which is an incredible, incredible step. But at the same time, that's the liberation, that's the real freedom. That is when the discontent is gone. The only time that we finish with this inner discontent is when we realize our true nature as that very love. We want to go home, like you said. Okay? So our home is our true nature, our very being itself. Okay, so so when we talk about love and fear, okay, a woman wrote me and she said, Bert, she said, I think you are wrong. She said, because when you always say that the opposite of love is fear, but love has no opposite. Well, in a way she is right, but then again she's probably doing it intellectually, because if she goes deep enough into unconditional love, which is the very nature of love, which is the nature of oneness, we're all one, that's the awakened state of consciousness, okay? We'll discover that that very love itself, unconditional love, has no opposite in it, because all fear drops the moment you realize your nature is love. You see? But initially, you think of love as loving someone or something. True love, complete love, unlimited love has nothing to do with that. It is simply realizing that you are life itself. In other words, the wave on the ocean suddenly realizes, I am more than just a wave. And the other waves are not separate from me, because we are all the same one water, the same one ocean. And in that realization lies the completion, the fullness of the being. You see? So, okay. So when we say that fear is the opposite of love, what we're really saying is that fear itself doesn't exist. Because if love is the very nature of being, if love is the very nature of God, of the wholeness, okay? And now when I say God, I'm not talking about an entity here. I'm talking about love itself, okay? This is the nature of our true home. This in itself is complete. It is called heaven. You can call it that, okay? Our true home. So when we find it, we find that fear never existed. So fear itself is not something. Fear is the unawareness of our true nature as love, thinking that there is the possibility of not being love.
So is it like fear is our illusion of separation?
Yes, illusion of separation.
And so when we realize its illusionary nature, then it isn't anymore. But in some ways, it's a paradox, because fear wants to be one in home. It wants to be one with it all in home. It just doesn't realize that it has self-separated.
That's right. Which is impossible.
Which is impossible.
Because separation is not possible.
Right.
Just
so
like the wave
illusion,
is separate from the water that is itself.
So it's the illusion of that.
Yeah.
And it's the illusion of that that gives us our sadness, because we believe the illusion that we are separate, alone, and not where we should be.
That's right.
And so the whole thing is a giant trick we play on ourselves, even though we can be compassionate. That's our human side.
That's right.
But it's actually a trick we're playing on ourselves.
Right. That's a trick we're playing on ourselves as a human. Because again, you know, even our brain is a linear brain. You see? It's moving from past to future all the time. We're missing the now most of the time, because now is timeless. You see, we're not talking, when we talk about now, we're not talking about the present time. We're talking about this moment, which is eternal, because there's no exit to now. Have you ever done anything, thought anything, felt anything, experienced anything that was not now when it happened? It's impossible. There is no exit to now. Now is eternal. Therefore, it is timeless. But most people live a whole lifetime never in that now moment. And then people will say, oh, Burt, I had a wonderful spiritual experience. And what it actually is, that they've experienced the now for the first time in their life, when now is all that there ever is. You see? Because now is the highest love. Now itself. And you can see it in a cat, and a kitten, and a puppy, in a 1-year-old child. That joy, that the yogis call it Sachitananda, that bliss, that feeling of fullness. Why? Because there's innocence. There's no making something wrong. There's no judgment yet, you see? And when there isn't any of that, you are home, which is the now. And the now is that heaven, you see?
If we could be aware enough, we could see that there is no place where that isn't.
That's right.
And
it's not possible.
And even in the sadness, the longing, the hurt, the self-loathing, even in that is a great beauty if we see it in its illusionary way and its human way.
Yeah.
So in that, truly love is everywhere, and there's a place for the perception or the illusion of fear, but not for fear itself in the moment.
Right. Yeah.
So that's
when you go
amazing.
When you go into the moment itself, there is no fear. Fear is impossible.
It's impossible, because
yeah.
It has to be either before or after or outside.
Exactly, because fear lives in time. I wonder
Because
what's
fear
going
lives
to
in
happen.
time.
Anxiety, you see? So, but this is why the greatest healing is not done through drugs. It is done by looking at the fear in the moment. See, and the moment you look at it, you can only be now. And in that very now, you see that fear is just an idea I'm entertaining, but right now there is no fear. Yeah.
Is that is looking at it the now itself?
Yes. Yes, that's beautiful. Yeah.
I mean, it's...
Yeah, when you allow yourself to look, it is the now itself being itself. And you are being who you are, and therefore comes that dissolution of that fear that you've had. But the thing is, we don't want to let go. We don't want to look at the fear. You see? That's why People who get sick eventually end up in a mental home or become drug addicts or whatever, because there's the human part of us wants to overcome, wants to control, wants to fix, and it doesn't see the illusion that it is. It makes it so real, you see? But when you make something real, you become its victim. But the moment you see that it's not real at all, it cannot be real, because the nature of life is. You see the word, yeah.
Well, I'm just wondering, does someone who has not explored or, searched, can they see themselves doing that?
Yes, of course they can. But see, this is the thing. Any good teacher will tell you don't need a teacher. Any great guru will tell you don't need a guru. But the thing is, you need a guru to tell you don't need a guru. You see, so to answer your question, everything is possible, but to do it by yourself without guidance, or somebody who's gone through the same process that you are going through, it will become very, very difficult. So you need a guiding hand, but that doesn't mean he or she knows better than you. It is just going to show you that if you listen to the moment, if you just be here and allow yourself, that letting go itself will teach you everything you need to know. So sometimes you need a hand, to give a hand to somebody, to help them see how simple it can be. That's called love. That reaching out, that holding of the hand, that doing is what is. I've got many clients, they come to see me, and right now I'm doing a lot of Skyping. And at the beginning all I do is just let them talk. And they realize something, 90% of them realize that after they've talked for about 10 minutes, they have revealed the very answers that they were seeking themselves. Because as you keep on going and being realistic, being true to yourself, and you expose how you really feel, and you're honest, and you don't fear being judged, and this is the beautiful thing about Skyping, like, you can trust Burt, because you can be totally yourself, he'll never judge you. So people feel that. So because they feel that they can be themselves, by being themselves, then they reveal the very answers they were seeking. You see, and that's the beautiful thing. So you need guidance, and to show that they don't need guidance, that they can do it by themselves, when you learn to trust your own heart. You see? Yeah.
It's actually, life is the teacher.
Life is the teacher.
And the rest of us just channel it around, and sometimes need a little channeling from other sides and all of that.
Yeah.
But life itself holds everything. That's such an incredible thing. We're so used to acquiring knowledge, acquiring a spiritual attainment, acquiring, gotta get there, come on, what's the matter with you? And really it's always there all the time, and we just have to fall into it. As the person with the email there, when they said, I feel helpless, I want to die, what I want to say is, do it. Because there'll be something that will die and something that has always lived.
But you also said there's a great fear of letting go.
Of letting go.
Because, yeah. Just like Jesus said, he said, when you, how was it put? He says, when you die to yourself, you find yourself.
Yeah.
So what dies is always the ego. Because you yourself can never die, because you never existed. You just are. You're pure awareness. You see, that's the beautiful thing. When you realize that you are this eternal being that never had a beginning or will never know an end. See, that is so beautiful. That is so peace-giving too.
And creating the safety to have great compassion for the one that fears. then that makes it so much easier to surrender when there's nothing to push against,
Right.
nothing pushing you,
Right.
just being held.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the whole point, which come back to love again, you see. And the only thing that works, the only thing that gives meaning, the only thing is love. And there's no limit to love. No limit to it at all. It starts out very selfish, very wanting it for yourself. For example, how many people are advertising relationships right now? Phew. They're growing. Of course, a lot of people are making money out of it. You know, everybody wants someone. But the person that wants someone is, I want someone who will take care of me, I want someone who's going to love me, I want someone that's going to be honest with me, I want someone that will never judge me, and the other person is saying the same thing. So all the time, we're not really loving, but wanting love. And wanting love are the first steps of the human reaching towards its own greatness. The first steps are baby steps called I want, I need, I have to have. You see? And I want to possess it, I want to own it. And I want to know that I'm really loved. And if you cheat me, I'll kill you. But love itself it starts to grow to the point where you love someone so much that all you care is their happiness. Is to know that they're okay, you know, and it keeps on growing. And it comes to the point where you begin to forget yourself within that love then. You see?
Are you actually loving them, or are you loving yourself in their presence?
That's very good. It's both. It's both. Because love is so all-encompassing that when you try to define it, it falls at your feet. It's you see,
it's an expression.
It's an expression, yeah. You see, now there are, for example, you meet someone and their vibrations, their frequency, you have a kinship with them, their level of awareness is akin to yours, and you feel this connection. You feel comfortable with them. You see, so those are the first sign of feeling that love. You feel comfortable. You feel so comfortable that you can be totally yourself with this person, and you know that they're not going to control you or judge you or misinterpret you, and that begins the awakening of true love. But are you really loving that person, or is that person creating a space in which both of you are growing in that love in your own heart? You see, because when you love someone, you find that it's not exclusive anymore, it's inclusive. So it starts to grow more and more and more. And when you truly love someone, you'll find that your capacity to love has increased. It has taken in more, deeper. So this is what, you're a human being, you see? But all the time we're moving towards being. And expand, more and more and more. You know, there's no limit.
So I'm just wondering, Burt, like in that moment of discontent, the effort would be to just be with it.
Yeah. Actually, the more effortless it is, the faster it heals. And that is the key to healing. You see, the key to healing is allowing to be still and know I am God. Okay, those are the beautiful 7 words of the English language. But when you actually can sit with something, to be still with anything at all, that very stillness takes any fear, any disturbance, any depression, anything, and it absorbs it into its bosom. And before you know it, it turns into love. Love encompasses everything. And it sucks like a sponge any seeming fear or any seeming limitation. The moment you give it that now, that now moment, you see.
I think it's really easy for us as humans to think that what we need to do is we need to kind of corner that feeling and get it, which is just the opposite, because being with that deeply, we are being with life deeply, and life will break through and show its magnificence in anything if we can be with it deeply.
Yeah.
And there's no judgments in there. It's just embracing it.
Embracing it fully.
And that's such a...
Yeah. That's where the wholeness comes in.
That's
life again.
Wholeness in it.
Yeah.
When you do that with your hands, it's like wholeness and wholeness. It's like holding with your heart that has no limit to the length of its hands.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
It's...
Yeah. Well, that's the expansion of us, you see. We as we expand, we're actually really reaching out, because we think that being is inside the body. And in truth, it is the body which is inside the being.
Yeah.
Because being is all there is. So when you expand, you actually go beyond the limitations of the body. You see, and you begin to see there's no limit to you. Yeah, and that is the expansion of love. So, okay, the next one, is a very brief one, but it's also something that we often forget, and it's nice to talk about. He says, thank you for your email. I had to copy your major questions and increase the fonts. You asked, okay, I'm writing him. This is what he asked. Let's say that I accept now, and I accept my being in the moment. What about the past, which has helped me get my earthly identity, and not necessarily my ego? Can we feel that? My earthly identity. What is earthly identity? Not necessarily the ego.
Personality? Personality?
Okay, maybe he's referring to personality as my identity.
Or
Okay.
the accumulated judgments and fears and
Yeah.
all that.
So actually, all what we call please feel this out, because it took me such a long time. When I studied psychology, it made it even worse rather than better, and they called it self-image. So what I call identity is based on an image, you see? And it was Asagiola, the founder of psychosynthesis, who said that 95% of our energy is spent protecting, defending, and maintaining our self-image. And it's all imagination. Image, imagination. So, you see, we keep referring to our identity, but our identity, the identity of the wave is that it's water. My identity is that I am life, appearing as Burt. Yes, I'm appearing as this body. But my true identity, the identity that gives me home, that gives me fulfillment, that gives me the happiness of being here, is my true identity, is the life that makes me breathe, that beats my heart, that moves, that circulates my blood and keeps everything going. That is my true identity, but then it's with everybody else, see? So we begin to understand that we do have an identity, but that identity is everyone's identity too, you see? That's when we begin to understand the wholeness that is love.
It seems impossible we strive to know and have an identity, and yet it is impossible to know that kind of identity and be surrendered in the moment, because in that moment you don't know anything, and
Right.
you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, do I? Yeah.
And I think that in that moment, it's when we're not trying, that we get lit up, and our true nature of what we were born to comes forth, because we are no longer struggling to identify with anything. So what God made can go, here I am.
Yeah. And in that simplicity of I am, I just am, lies the fullness of being. It's full. And in that moment there is nothing that you lack. And that's your true identity. But as long as you identify your identity as the past that made you from what you've studied and learned, the degrees and education and everything else, it's all part of the conditioning. Yeah, you don't throw that aside, of course not. You know, your human expression is that. But to identify as being solely that becomes your limitation, the stranglehold, you see. You, in truth, are not limited to that identification. Your true identity is limitless.
We're trying to hold God in the thimble we came with.
Yeah. 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 There's another one interesting here too. Burt, I need your help with some issues that I'm having in everyday situations. I don't have enough clarity about it, and I know that because I feel anxious when I face them. These are more like out there situations that for some reason I've realized I am being affected by them. There is a strong attachment in them, and there is a sense of guilt about them, even though there is nothing I can do. Please really listen to this, because I'd love to hear your feedback. So I am faced with a situation of guilt where I unconsciously put myself into a trap, where I create an internal conflict where don't like what I am experiencing. At the same time, I cannot do anything about it. So I feel stuck, and the suffering starts, of course. And this all happens in a split second. Actually, he was able to put it in words, so very good. You were able to put in words what few people are able to do. And it does happen in a split second. See how complicated the human mind gets about something so extremely simple. The simplicity of you is, I am, here, now. Anything else is a concoction of the mind's play.
Is it that we feel that if we can't figure it out, we will be helpless and therefore die or something?
Very good, very good. There is a fear of that helplessness, that if we don't figure it out, if we don't make sense out of it, we feel we're dying. That's it. Yeah. We like to put meaning into all this activity that is going on, and we'll try to make sense out of it. But you can't. You can't make sense out of things that contradict themselves all the time, contradicting your very being, contradicting your very life.
It gives us the illusion of control.
It gives us the illusion of control. How beautiful you are. Mm-hmm. It gives us the illusion of control, as long as I try to figure it out, even if I don't.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, purpose to get there.
Yeah, that's right, that's right. Yeah. Yeah. So now, do we see clearly how this feeling of inner discontent is with everybody unless they realize their true nature? Everybody suffers. Whether they admit it or not, that's immaterial. Everybody feels it. I've done hypnotherapy for 30 years, over 30 years, and every client that I had, everyone, they all felt I'm not good enough. I'm missing something. There's something wrong with me.
So it's kind of in a way, those that listen to your videos and emails, they're so fortunate to explore that.
Yeah, well, this is what is happening, though. And with people like you sharing now, which is beautiful, people are beginning to really look at themselves, you know. And I've had hundreds of emails, sometimes daily I get, and they're telling me that now they're beginning to look, and that they are far more than they think they are, and they're becoming clearer, you see. So
There's something beautiful about the longing. The very thing that gives us sadness and illusion of separation, there's a beauty about, the human beauty about that soul.
the yearning, isn't it?
The yearning. There's something
But the soul
beautiful
is
about
yearning all the time. That's what the soul is, actually. It's a yearning to go home. It doesn't matter what you're experiencing. You know that there's
Yes.
something better, but you
Yes.
don't know what it is.
And there's something beautiful about that. It's like
Yeah,
it moves us in
yeah,
the right direction, but we forget that we are all that we're looking for, really.
mm-hmm.
And that's really hard to take.
Yes. We miss the fact that we are already that which we want more than anything, that which we are yearning for. But yet, if somebody points it out, it's scary.
Yes.
How come I don't get it? How come I can't live it?
Right.
You see?
Bring out the whip.
Yeah. So are there any questions about what we covered? Anything at all?
I'm just wondering, is just even recognizing the discontent the moment itself too? Like just
Recognizing the discontent is already a step. Most people feel the discontent all the time, but they actually never looked at it.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know that everybody feels that who doesn't know who they are. Because they think that their identity is the worldly conditioning, you see, instead of who they really are, they're a human being. The being is who they are. Just like the wave of the ocean is water. That's the nature, that's the identity of the wave. Not the millisecond of life that comes and gone. You see?
We keep busying ourselves. We're like the wave rushing to get to the shore to try to discover who it is. You know?
Yeah, yeah.
And because if we stop, all that helpless empty comes, and we run away from the very thing that we seek. Isn't that?
Yeah. We run away. See, this is another paradox, okay? But all of life, until you realize your true nature, is a paradox. Love is the one thing everybody wants. Everybody wants love. I want attention, I want approval, I want to be accepted, I want to be recognized. I want you to love me. But yet, the one thing we fear the most is love itself. Because love itself, the purity of that love, means there's no you. There is no person. There is just wholeness. Just like the wave recognizing that there is no wave. I just appeared as a wave. There's only the ocean. I just appeared as a wave. You see? And that is scary. That is scary for the ego.
Eric, what I think of right now is meditation. How, what other ways to get there than through meditation, right?
Yes.
Through the silence.
Yeah. The beautiful thing about meditation, if you use it as a direct experience of everything that goes on. You see? You know, mindfulness, becoming aware of everything that's going on, playing back and forth, and you look at it detached. See?
So yeah, mindfulness is all that, like just watching, looking at patterns.
Yeah, yeah, and you look at it, yeah, in a detached way. That this is not you, this is the activity of the mind.
And who's doing the looking there?
That's it, the now itself,
itself.
awareness itself. Who you really are. The moment you start watching, like for example, we talked about this, and I'm going to mention it again, so those of you listening to this video might actually use it. Start watching your breath. And then as you start watching your breath, you find you've been controlling it all along. It's so subtle. You are not even aware that you are controlling it. And then the moment you become aware that you've been controlling it, you begin slowly letting go and find that the breathing goes on by itself. But it enters a different momentum, deeper, slower, you see? And then you watch your own breathing. And you see that nobody is doing the breathing. You're just being breathed. You see? And that becomes the meditation. Because now you are the awareness of that action. And that awareness is who you are. You see? So that's where meditation becomes very beautiful. That's a form of mindfulness too. Looking, witnessing, directly experiencing what is at the moment. And then you'll find that everything that happens in life, problems or whatever, like this week, I was talking to Jen, everything went wrong. Anything I tried to buy, anything I tried to fix, everything, technology, everything, you know. So that's why I'm trying the iPad for the first time, because the camcorders are not working. But the beautiful thing is that at no time did it ever affect me as something is wrong or anything, because we go through moments too where the human part of us, like maybe astrologically or numerology or whatever, nothing happens by chance, right? So you go through periods where things don't work out as other times, which is all part of the movement of you know, being who you are. But the moment you begin to accept it and go along with it, you'll find it's no big deal. See? But if it gets to you and you try to control it, now that's how we create problems. Yeah, today too, I had to clean out his box. We're talking about the cat. And it was smelling so bad. And but the stuff that I get, it's supposed to be, goes through you can throw it in the toilet. Before I used to put it in a plastic bag and I take it out in the garbage. But this time, the litter is supposed to be absorbed, you know, goes through the toilet. And I almost flooded the toilet. Anyway, and it was smelling so bad, and I had to wash it, and then he had to go to the bathroom. So anyway, but things do follow a pattern where they just don't flow. But if you allow the non-flow, becomes the flow. You see? Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, I think it's good to seek meditation and quiet and all of that, but that also can be a trap, because meditation exists in every moment.
Exists in every moment. It is
And
the
it
now
exists
itself.
when the cat shat on the floor, as well as when the first ray of sun hits you.
Right, right. Yeah, yeah. You know, many times, like for example, he does it on the carpet, and I've got to clean the carpet, and I don't see too well, you know, so sometimes it leaves a mark. You'll probably see many marks here. And but never a thought comes to me, should I get rid of him? Never. Because he is my love. You see? You cannot, this is the beauty of love, you see? It doesn't matter what problems it brings you, it doesn't matter what it creates. That very love itself is what gives meaning, and what gives fullness. You know? Who can replace that pairing, that
I
sweetness?
sometimes think when things go wrong, because I have weeks like that too, where
Yeah.
everything you touch, it's like, and I start thinking that that's because I'm out of touch with who I am, but there's times where, you know, you just have to laugh at it because there's nothing you can do to change it. It's just going to be like that.
Right. Beautiful.
And if you
Beautiful.
can accept it,
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
I'm not always good at accepting it, but most
No,
of the times
no.
I try. Because there's nothing I can do about it.
Yeah.
Could you explain, Bert, what letting go actually is?
Yeah. Yeah.
That was
You
quick.
see, that's another paradox. You know, letting go is not letting go at all.
It's
Letting
doing-
go is leaving alone.
That's what I meant. That's what I meant. Leave it alone.
Leave it alone. Don't go there.
Don't go there.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is
It's
it.
like
You see.
non-doing.
Yeah. It's a non-doing. Yeah. Like control, for example. You see, we want to be in control all the time. You know, that's what anger is.
But
Okay,
because
want to
we
be
need
control.
to know to be okay.
We want everything to be okay.
Yeah, like we need to know that's the control, right?
Right, that's the control,
Yeah.
right. But what if you realize what control really is? You see, when you allow and not control anything, that's when you are in control.
Yeah.
See, this is the paradox. So when you said, Bert, what is letting go?
Well, I guess sometimes it's like,
Yeah.
like, what do you drop? Like, but it's not that.
It's not that. See, this is why it's very hard for people to understand these words, because they seem to be so complex, because they have paradoxes. You see, just like love, the greatest fear is our fear of love, which is the greatest love that we have and yearning for. But so we are yearning for the very thing that at the same time scares us silly. Because love itself means there is no you. There's only love. You see?
Perhaps rather than letting go, which we think as an action like go, you know, perhaps it's more of an embracing of the moment,
Yeah.
letting the moment push into you, take you, touch you all over, so you know what that moment is. Let it penetrate you. So it's less of a letting go and more of a
Letting go.
it's hard to
Yes,
yeah.
of course, of course. See, this is it. It's so subtle.
Yeah.
It's learning to be all the time, to be with what is. And everything is okay.
Then what I want to say on that is like to get in touch with who is the being,
Who is the being?
who is doing the being okay.
And who is the being?
Well, it's just the pure allowance.
That's right. And what is the pure allowance?
Well, that's what the moment is.
That's right.
That's what the essence of, like, I guess that word essence just.
That's right. Yeah. Don't mind me.
No,
giving, you know,
not at all.
because once we start to inquire and move into it, we begin to actually feel the simplicity. Just like learning to let go means not letting go, because not letting go by understanding what letting go is letting go. Oh boy.
What did you say?
You see, it sounds so complicated,
Yes,
isn't
but
it?
Yeah,
it isn't, because all those words are either on one side or the other of the truth.
Of the truth, which is the
Because-
duality of the mind, isn't it?
Yes, because the mind can't hold wholeness. It can't hold that.
That's beautiful. It cannot hold wholeness. That's right.
Yeah,
And
so
it wants
jumps,
to,
and
right?
It wants to. It
Right.
wants to know. It wants to know the unknowable. It
Wants to
wants
get
to
it.
know. It wants
Yes.
to get it. It is. Yeah, but who is aware? And we can't know that with the small n. We can only be that, and then the knowing comes, but we can't get that knowing because we're trying to shove the ocean into the thimble again.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
You know?
But what I found for my growth is it was kind of like, I want to say kind of like a friendship that was built and is just being built now.
That's right.
And
That's
I-
a beautiful way
It's
to
a
put it, isn't
No,
it?
but we
Creating
expect
a
it to
friendship.
be, bright lights and sparkles and the
Yeah,
works.
yeah,
And it sure has not been that for me.
yeah.
And it's just been a developing relationship.
A developing
Wow,
relationship.
that's nice. That's
yeah, very,
sweet.
very nice. Yes. Yeah, we find
That's
words
very
eventually
sweet.
that are very simple, and that's what it is.
And it's experiencing what we were talking about tonight, the discontent, the one who is observing the discontent, if we choose to
Yeah.
observe it.
The moment to observe the discontent is not the discontent anymore. It's only because through unconsciousness she was identified with the discontent. And so I thought, I am discontent. But when you are able to look at it, detached, you're no longer the discontent, you're just observing it
Okay,
as
so
simply a happening.
that's where I was wondering about effort. Where does the effort come in to, when you're in discontent, you are all discontented.
Yes,
But I guess along the way there's an opening to see, oh my God, I'm so discontented.
that's where the awareness goes. See, the awareness is always perfect. The awareness is unlimited. The awareness is, okay? So initially, nobody can hear a talk like this and able to go ahead and be aware. Okay, normally it doesn't happen that way unless you've listened a lot, you've worked at it, you've been doing it for a long time. You see, because it's so simple that the mind can't conceive of it. But what you said was so beautiful is that you are in moments creating a relationship. You see, with what is happening. So the part in you that observes, all of a sudden seeing this. See, you are creating a relationship, which means that the awareness in you saw this for you to be able to put it in words, right?
I experience it, yes.
You're right.
And continually do.
Right. So there is the awareness in you, the being watching the human. You see?
But that's what I'm finding so beautiful about it is the being was always there.
It's yeah. The being is what appears. The human is the appearance of being.
Mm-hmm.
You see, like for example, people say, "But Bert, if you die, then I don't hear anymore, then I don't see anymore, then I don't experience anymore, then it's finished." And I said, no. The body's eyes, the body's nose, the body's mouth, the body's ears are tools. But everything is done by consciousness. You see? So the being does everything. I had an out-of-body experience several times, but the first time was I was 17 years of age. And I was completely clear. I felt emotions, I knew I was thinking, everything was clear, and yet I was outside the body. So this is where we begin to understand that the human is not a solid thing. It is the appearance of being. You see? And when we eat the great boat, we say, oh, I woke up. I'm awake. And now I'm free. You see? The human still continues doing its own thing. Yeah, you're still subject to astrological changes, atmospheric changes. Now we're entering the fourth dimension. Tremendous change is happening. Yeah, this is all happening to the human. But when the being can watch it all, that's the wonderful thing. Okay, so is that clear about the inner discontent then, and how it happens, and how we can actually rise above it? Okay, namaste.